Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 2023 Chess Grand Swiss. This is an epic tournament being held at the Isle of Man, and it determines who is going to make the Candidates Chess Tournament, which will be in early 2024. The Candidates Tournament, of course, winner takes on the World Chess Champion later in that year. Fabiano Caruana, Hikaru Nakamura, Alireza Firouzja, just to name a few players who are competing. This round featured one of the most absurd Stockfish continuations I have ever seen in my life. There was ridiculous sacrifices. There was grandmasters getting checkmated in 15 moves. I'm going to give you an update on all the top players. We will continue to follow the developing storylines, and we're just going to have a great time. That's what we're going to do. We have it every single time. Again, a special thank you to all of you here in the book launch week in late October of 2023 for making it so incredible, for checking out the book, getting the book, reviewing the book. If you bought the book, you are very, very much appreciated. I just want to say thank you, really. Thank you. Game one. This game ended before it even began. I wasn't even fully awake. This game ended. Matthias Bluebaum versus Sanal. Germany versus Turkey. Knight f3, d5. Very quickly, it becomes some sort of English, where white plays the move c4, and then you will notice that Bluebaum delays the development of this pawn. So it's not really a queen's pawn game, but it kind of can always become a queen's pawn game. Knight c3, bishop e7, blah, 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 b6. Okay. Take, pawn to d4. All of this has been played many, many, many times before. Bishop b7. Bishop to d3, just regular stuff. Just two guys who are developing their pieces. Black plays pawn to a6, preventing white from ever playing knight to b5. Now, here Bluebaum plays knight e2. The idea of knight e2 is very simple. He just wants to put his knight on g3. He wants the bishop to support the e5 square, and then he wants to have the c-file. What does he give up when he plays knight to e2? He gives up the square on e4, but he's fine with that because I'm assuming after this and this, he can play pawn to f3, removing that knight. Sanal plays bishop d6 after thinking for 9 minutes, clearly intending to meet knight to g3 with the intention of knight f5, and capturing this bishop would result in a very, very bad pawn structure. His idea there is to play g6. He cannot yet play the very natural knight e4 because after knight f5, grabbing this bishop is just good for white. So instead of that, g6. White plays knight e5, and black plays knight e4. Okay, both guys have kind of accomplished what they would like to do. Bluebaum plays bishop takes. He gives up the bishop for the knight. The reason that he does that is that now black has a pawn on e4 that is a target. So you can play a move like queen to c2. You can also utilize the freed up c4 square to go there and then take, and that bishop could prove to be a menace in the attack. So we have queen to c2. And now something weird happens. Bluebaum attacks this. Sanal defends it. And now Bluebaum plays d5. d5 cuts the bishop from seeing the pawn. d5 also opens up the vision of this bishop. If black takes with the knight, he loses support of e4, so we're going to get this. Then black can go here, and then this looks very annoying. But actually, after queen e7, the position's okay, and there's even a nice little tactic, knight takes e3 to try to take this. Then there's knight f6 check, queen f6, both queens are hanging, and the game actually does end up fizzling out into a draw. But if you take with the bishop, Wahab spent 10 minutes on that move, and it loses on the spot. Because suddenly, you cannot stop the battery. And the very simple threat that white has here is to move the knight. To play knight to g4, which would threaten the knight, lure it away, and then get checkmated. The game is over, so black plays h5. And all of a sudden, knight to d7. And black resigns. Oh my. If you take with the knight, it's mate in 1. And if you take with the queen, it's mate in 2. And if you don't take it all, then you are just down a piece for the duration of the game, and you will lose this game. What? That just happened out of nowhere. Grandmaster just got checkmated in 15 moves. That almost never happens. That is wild. Out of nowhere, just queen up 1 square. You know, the thing is, Vahap probably spent a long time calculating rook d1 or the other rook to d1, and he just totally missed queen c3. And Bluebaum wins in like 10 minutes, which is not actually, but crazy. Now, the next game that I have for you is, oh my. If your kids are watching, this is a parental advisory warning. d4, knight f6. This is Denis Lazavik. He's a young, talented grandmaster from Belarus. And his opponent is Radoslav Wojtaszek, who is a #2 ranked chess player from Poland. This is a Catalan. This is basically the only opening that Denis Lazavik knows. I'm joking, but if you look at Lazavik's games, he literally only plays the Catalan. It is actually quite fascinating. Against everything. And he's 2560 GM, and he's like 7 years old, so he's like 17 or something. But very, very good player. He's also one of the most accurate players on chess.com because all of his openings are the Catalan. So, like, I think his average accuracy in some rapid event, something was like 93%, because he's just so solid. Bishop b4 check, at least with white. I don't know about with black. a5, and Lazavik plays this line with queen c1. I will not pretend to know anything about this because the Catalan is one of the weirdest openings in chess. Both guys are blitzing out all of their moves because, well, except here Lazavik thinks for a little bit, because they clearly know the theory. White is going to put pressure on black's kind of passive queenside. Black is just going to try to vibe, literally. Knight to e5. Here comes white trying to be, you know, provocative and taking a little bit of space. And now the knight comes to c3, and we're just trying to make a bit of progress here. But Wojtaszek plays b6, and Wojtaszek is like, look, I'm not going to get bullied by a child, so I'm sacrificing a pawn. I'm sacrificing a pawn so I get activity, and at some point I'm going to play the move c5, at which point my bishop, my rook, and this bishop are all going to come alive. And that is exactly what happens. And here comes Wojtaszek. All that queenside counterplay coming down the board. Boom. Boom. Rook c5. Now, he is still a pawn down, and he doesn't have the two bishops. The bishop pair is a very significant advantage in chess. And yet, despite all of that, here he is winning one of his pawns back. We have rook b2. He goes back with his queen. It's a very, very tense position. And here, Denis Lazavik breaks away from his true and tried style of solidity and goes wild. This is like when you're sheltered. You're in, you know, your entire life in high school. You go to college. All of a sudden, you get access to a whole bunch of things. All right? Bishop takes h6. He's trying some crazy stuff over here. The idea is very straightforward. After takes, the knight is hanging. And if the knight goes back to defend the king, I'm assuming he wants to play e4 and try to blow up the center of the board. You can't really go rook d4 because your back rank is a bit weak, but I think that's sort of the point. Instead here, after bishop takes h6, g takes h6, he reconsiders and he plays queen to d4. Or maybe that was always his idea. He plays here and queen to d4, which I suppose is a fork. And in this position, Radoslav Wojtaszek, instead of licking his wounds, finds the absolutely monstrous queen to a1. My friends, you have a knight hanging and you have a rook hanging, and instead you hang your queen. In reality, the queen now has eyes on this and this. And if rook takes a1, nothing can save the king except the bishop. What does black do now? Black sacrifices the rook. The rook on c5 is completely hanging. But you open the door for the bishop, and my friends, this is over. White is mated. Doesn't matter that there's the queen and a rook standing around. The only way that white survives this is by giving up the queen back and being a full knight down. Queen a1. Oh my God. That is a cold ice bucket of water on the head right there. That is like, yep. Nothing you can do about that. Queen a1 from Wojtaszek. Absolutely savage move. And now Dennis spends 25 minutes probably wondering, why did I take on h6? I mean, I had a completely normal position. Bishop takes h6. And unfortunately, Wojtaszek is just up a knight. Or fortunately, if you're supporting him, and Dennis still gets really aggressive, but the knight goes back to g8. He still gets very aggressive, but there's nothing to be done. Wojtaszek guards his king, and in this position, White just resigned. Lazavik just said, I'm down a knight. Like, I'm not going to play this on. I could, but I am lost. Queen to a1. And somewhere Stockfish smiled. What a move. My friends, it's time to go around the horn. Fabiano Caruana on board one. Recently, newly reminted 2800. Just him and Magnus up there. He's 2-0 in this tournament. He just beat Hans Niemann. Will he continue to destroy people regardless of what color he is playing? In this round, he is playing Erwin Leamy. And if you have an apostrophe in your name, you are kind of a Chad. So a lot of respect. Not as cool as having a click in your name. Like if his name was Le Ami, spectacular. I mean, even cooler. But I'll take an apostrophe. Erwin is also the, I think, training partner, coach of Anish Giri. Famed and esteemed father, husband, and grandmaster. Bishop to f4. This is an 8. By the way, Fabiano Caruana playing an a6 Queen's Gambit Declined probably has the Gotham Queen's Gambit Declined repertoire with a6. Take, bishop f4, bishop e5. This has been played before. Don't worry about the theory. Don't pretend like, I'm not going to pretend like we're going to learn it anyway. Now, Fabi gets a little bit provocative in the opening with his knight. He's trying to maybe bring the f-pawn into the action, which you'll see in a little bit. That's exactly what happens. And now we have bishop c4, and basically we're going to get to a situation where Erwin just trades a lot of the pieces. And by the time move 17 comes around, it's just rooks and knights. White is going to try to go here. Black will either plant the knight on d5 or in White's territory. In White's territory we go. And now a nice little move, knight to c1. And the point of knight to c1 is that if you take on b2, rook b1. Rook b1, right? Knight takes b2, rook b1. And then I'm going to get the pawn on b7. So that is the point. So instead of that, Fabi goes back. Now we have knight e2, knight d3. That's actually Fabi offering a draw. And this is Fabi saying, you know what, maybe I want to play for a little bit longer. And now we have knight c3. So the players do a little dance. And then we go to a rook endgame, and I think you kind of get where this is going. Absolutely nothing happens, and the game ends in a draw in move 31. Sometimes that's chess, all right? This is why it's kind of hard to market it, all right? Because if you're just going to sell this to an advertiser... But sometimes that's how it goes. This is not Fabi's fault. It's playing black. It's hard to win with black. Tries to play kind of an imbalanced Queen's Gambit Declined. His opponent just plays in literally the most solid way possible, and then they trade a bunch of pieces... And then they dance around with knights, and then that the game is a rook endgame, and then it's a draw. So Fabi has 2.5. He probably lost like 3 rating points for drawing this game. Maybe 2, which is brutal. I think he might be like 27.99 now, but he has 2.5 out of 3. Decent start for him. He can't ask for much more. And here's Hikaru. Hikaru's had a... I think if you asked Hikaru if he could have 2 draws to start the event, he would probably be unhappy. Like, I think he would probably prefer 1.5 out of 2, but such is life. And now he has the white pieces again, this time against Aryan Chopra, who is one of the 83 Indian grandmasters, not playing at the tournament, but just in life. We have knight c3, and we have this e3 approach. So black plays a semi-Slav, one of the most combative openings, and Hikaru plays e3, which is a little bit more solid, but... You know, bishop d6, a good line. Castles, castles. And he just develops his pieces. Like, Hikaru just puts his bishops out and then plays bishop d3. This is a line where white spends 2 moves doing this. I can't really explain it. It's basically played like this because if you play bishop d3 right away, then black can play dc. That's why. Hitting your bishop. Whereas if you play bishop e2 and then dc, white has an extra option to play a4, preventing b5. If knight b6, I play a5. That's kind of the point. So Hikaru kind of avoids d-takes, and then he plays bishop d3 later. And you have no advantage whatsoever, but it's life. Queen e7, rook c1. Both guys bring their rooks. And now black needs to play rook d8. I mean, as far as my theoretical knowledge here goes, rook d8 is the move. Like, black needs to put their rooks here. And that's all I remember, and then there's a big explosion in the center. But black plays bishop b4 after 10 minutes, and that's inaccurate. It's not a blunder, but I just remember I've studied this position before. I think black has to do this instead of playing bishop to b4. But Hikaru plays knight d2 after 7 minutes, and now black needs to do something in the center. Otherwise, black is just extremely passive. Like, if black makes one more waiting move, white is going to play e4. And then after something like d takes e4, knight takes e4, you could even take with the bishop, knight takes e4, bishop takes e4, white's just got, you know, good cannons here. Not like that, like that. So, in the game, black plays e5. Hikaru plays bishop f5 with good pressure, taking advantage of the newly weakened f5 square. Take, take. And now Hikaru finds a very nice idea. c5. And now black is in trouble. White has a whole rectangle of a board to operate with, and black's pieces are going to get suffocated to death over here. c5 is a nice idea. It prevents the bishop from coming home. If pawn takes c5... Zwischenzug. And if this, I'm gonna take. So if you take my knight, I'm gonna go here, and for a moment you're gonna go, well, I'm up material. Yeah, a7's hanging, and also this and that pin. So if you play a6, I go here, you gotta go here, because if you go here, you get mated. That would be very embarrassing at this level. All right? So instead of that, we have g6. Hikaru continues to supply the pressure. Look at Hikaru's pawn structure. 5 pawns on the dark squares. That bishop is still sealed out. He's about to put all of his pawns on the dark squares. B takes. Now Hikaru switches the plan and plays D takes to open the bishop. Remember that bishop from the Bluebaum game? The dark squared bishop, Phi and Caroed in the corner? Vicious stuff. Now, bishop takes c5. Hikaru activates the bishop and the rook. So Hikaru right now is a pawn down, but the laser beams of the bishops really burn black's position, and he's down 30 minutes on the clock. The bishop goes back. Hikaru gets rid of his bishop. Why? Because he uses a tactic to infiltrate into his opponent's territory, knight to e4, utilizing a pin to enter and cause damage. Black plays f6. That move stops a lot of the dark squared stuff, but weakens the light squares. Now that knight zips to c5. Now it's replaced by the other knight. The queen goes to f7. This bishop is dead. That bishop's an idiot. Complete idiot. Denies science. You know, like, I'm talking about the whole thing. Queen to d4 with the battery. Knight to g7. Look at Chopra's pieces. I mean, they are doing their job, but they are not having a good time. The queen goes to a4. The bishop, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. The bishop's got absolutely no oxygen. Bedroom with no windows. Hikaru brings reinforcements. Takes, takes. Black finally decides, I gotta get rid of the rooks. Hikaru says, no problem. I'm gonna zip around this way. Look at that. Look at that. Black's just got no moves. Complete and total dominance from Hikaru on the dark squares. Anchoring in the knight on b4. The queen could come give a check. It doesn't matter. The bishop doesn't have x-ray vision. Bishop can't even move. The bishop now comes back to b7 and tries to zip around, and does zip around. And Hikaru actually, according to Stockfish, could have been a little bit more accurate here. He needed to go queen b8. There was a ridiculous engine line here. Bishop a6, sacrificing the bishop, check here, queen e4, and then the king has to go for a run, and then the king goes to e2. If the king goes to e2, there's this, so you go here, and then you go back. That's tough to see. And that's how you avoid the draw. Instead, Hikaru, playing mostly on his opponent's deep time trouble, allows the bishop into the game. His opponent tries to fight him back tactically and plays bishop e4, but we end up in an endgame where only white can win, because black has way too many pawn weaknesses. f3, Hikaru picks up a pawn and ultimately gets that one. And after he gets that one, he gets straight to the black king. This king is wide open. The a pawn is the worst possible pawn to defend against. It's an outside pass pawn. And Hikaru wins a combative game for sure. But he wins it all the same. Queen to g6, h6. A very nice game. Very nice game. I mean, maybe he won't be happy. I don't know with what. I don't really understand what it's like to be, you know, that level of chess player. But I think looking at this game, it was very smooth sailing. So I would be happy if I was him. That seemed like a very nice game, very fun game. Game that allowed him to be creative and put a lot of pressure on his opponent from all sides of the board. And Hikaru back with a win with 2 points out of 3. The top board on the women's side was Tan Zhongyi versus Antoinette Stefanova. And we will finish the video by talking about one of the most absurd stories I've ever seen, which is 20-something-year-old Ramazan Zhalmakhanov, rated 2,447, who is having the greatest tournament potentially of this entire year. First, the board one of the women's side. This was a Queen's Gambit decline, similar, A6, to the Fabi game. But actually, the setup was similar to the Hikaru game in the sense that white played bishop e2 and b3. Black played in a way where they were solid, and there was this very nice square on b4 for black to put a piece. Tan Zhongyi demonstrated exceptional positional skills in this game. She put her knight on e5. Then she proceeded to trade knights and simply say, look, I have 3 pawns, and you have like 2 and kind of a little help here. So I'm going to spend my game just moving down that side of the board. She brought her queen. Her opponent went a5 to try to stop that pawn in its tracks and then play bishop b4. So she moved her rook and put the knight exactly in front of the light squared bishop. And then she played bishop f1, protecting her g2 pawn. And at some point, she's just going to go c5. And either black is going to be able to survive or not. So she went here, stopping knight g4, and then she went c5. And now black has to deal with the ramifications of the position. She tries. But here comes knight d6. Black is going to have to sacrifice the rook. And I'm not yelling that because it's mostly a defensive move to try to basically just get rid of that. But instead of that, black allows the knight to survive. And while this knight is here, while you are constantly distracted with this knight screaming at everything, here comes the bishop. And there's a secret hidden idea of bishop to g5. It's the opening of the door for the queen. The queen is going to get snuck into the territory with queen to g3 and queen to h4. And then you have potential rook lift possibilities as well. Black plays this, but now it's too little too late. Now it's too little too late. Now white gets everything. White is going to get the material and the attack on f6. Black plays this, queen h4. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. And you utilize the pin. The pawn is pinned to the bishop. There's a very nice tactical nuance here. Black cannot defend. Black has to do this to stop mate and loses the bishop. And now is just simply a rook down. Queen f6 check. Rook takes f7. That's mate. The only way to stop it is to go here. And the easiest way to win this by far, not the best way, trade everything, win the bishop, take these pawns, promote to 4 knights, make a stalemate. So Tan Zhongyi is 3 out of 3 on board 1. Very nice. And my friends, allow me to show you the most absurd story of this tournament thus far. Ramazan Zhalmakhanov is an international master from Kazakhstan, past the age of 20. He might be 20 exactly, but I think he's like 21. I could have looked this up. I forgot, so bear with me. He has defeated a 2650 Alan Pichot from Argentina. He then defeated Bassem Amin from Egypt. Now he's playing Alireza Firouzja, rated 2,777. Alireza's rating looks like an airplane. It looks like you're going to fly the Boeing Gigajet 2777, okay? Alireza is the fastest ever player in the history of humans to reach 2,800. The run of the Kazakh warrior will end. It is over. And Alireza plays the most cancerous opening known to man, the Catalan. It's over. He's going to play a positional masterpiece. A6, played by Ramazan. A4, this is a main line. Bishop c6. Alireza drops his queen back to c1. This has been played many, many times before. And Ramazan plays knight e4, which is not the most accurate move, but it is a move. And Alireza responds with knight e5. We're now going to have a clash of all the minor pieces in the center of the board. Ramazan takes and gives away his dark squared bishop before trading into an endgame and trying to play trading some pieces and trying to play queen c5, which would trade into an endgame. Rook c1, takes. This is exactly what I would expect. Ali Reza showing there are levels to this. I am 330 rating points above you. I am the #3 ranked chess player on the entire planet of Earth. I have a very annoying endgame that I'm about to stew you on. Rook to c8, rook to c1, c5. This is very, very bad. A5. And Ali Reza is squeezing the black position like a teddy bear. Nothing you can do. Absolutely nothing. I mean, black might want to get this knight here so it can have a panoramic view of the entire board, right? Hit f4, e3, everything. Can't do it. Knight f6, not possible. Knight b6, not possible. Rook b3, pressure forever. b4 with the pin. Bishop e3. You're going to bring the king here. I mean, it's over. Rook c7, bishop e3. You can't even take this, because if you take that, I'll just go back. And then I'm going to smash and rook c5, and I'm going to win that endgame. Bishop e3, Ali Reza looking to end the run of the gentleman from Kazakhstan. He has maximized all the pressure of his position. c4, bishop c5, sealing the connection from the rooks to the pawn. Rook takes c4. If you took it by black, I would have played rook c4. But now, apparently, the best move instead of taking is to just bring the king slowly. Because when you take, black now has b5. And you cannot take on Poseidon. I mean, you can, but now the knight is coming to that panoramic view. And if not to that panoramic view, it's going to go back to d7. And now Ramazan is asking his opponent, excuse me, what are you going to do to me? There's nothing you can do. I'm going to go back to b6 and back to d7. And Ali Reza goes rook a1. He goes for the a pawn. Take. So Ali Reza's a pawn up, but he's got doubled e-pawns. My friends, that is the conclusion. That is it. If you simplify this down, it is rook and pawn versus rook. That is what it is. And you can't win this. This is not winnable. It looks fantastic, but it is not winnable. Black defends his position. f5, take, rook e2, and in this position, Ali Reza takes on e6, and the game ends in a draw because of rook takes e5 check. Rook takes e5 check. Let's say white plays king h6, take, here. This is just a draw. There's nothing. It's rook and pawn versus rook and pawn. And that's it. Ramazan Zhalmakhanov, ladies and gentlemen, is now 2.5 out of 3 with a win over 2650 and 2680 and a draw over a 2,777 rated player. I mean, that is unbelievable. I don't even know what to say. Wow. I think that's all for today. I will see you all back for round number 4. And get out of here.